Now, we've renovated the property.
Yeah.
We've got it to where it needs to be, up to current market trends. Now let's talk about getting it ready to sell and selling it for top dollar.
Yeah, so hopefully, the project went well and the house is getting ready to sell.
Yeah.
Usually the last thing you do is a final clean and landscaping. Makes the inside and the outside just look beautiful, right? So those are the last two things you want to do on the inside and the outside, because you want to work your way out of the house. Same thing when you're doing your construction. On the exterior, it's top down. On the inside, it's outer walls to the inside. And when you're finishing, it's from the house back to the street, right? So the least amount of people will drive on the lawn, park on the lawn. For some reason, no matter how big your driveway or the street is, contractors love parking their trucks right on your grass.
Yeah.
That's why we say do landscaping last. Now that the house is cleaned up, the landscaping is done, this is when you're typically getting in touch with your realtor and talking about the strategy. If you're working with a good realtor, they can guide you through this process.
Yeah, and this is why it's important to work with the appropriate realtor on this. You don't want to work with a normal retail realtor who's never worked with an investor. And one reason why we like to work with investor-friendly agents in this particular area is we like to negotiate the commission down on the resale side, which adds more profit, net profit as well. A lot of my flips that I've done, instead of a 2.5% commission in California, I always negotiate that down to 1.5%. Because I'm telling them, hey, I'm going to be bringing you more properties. I'm serving this up for you on a silver platter, and I've never had any agent turn that down.
Yeah. Look, also, understanding the different companies that agents work with will allow you to be a better negotiator. A lot of agents today will work for a brokerage that's taking maybe only a 10% split. So they're going to get a big part of your commission, versus you're working with an agent in a more traditional brokerage that might split it 60-40. So negotiating is more difficult because they're getting less money. Or a broker that's working in a flat fee brokerage, they're getting, they're paying maybe $500 per transaction, so they get most of the commission. That tells you how much you can negotiate. So understanding where the agent works, what their splits are, will allow you to negotiate as well.
Great. So we've got the agent. We're selling the property. We're probably going to put it on the market at our ARV that we analyzed. In most markets, the listing agreement is probably going to be about 90 days or so. Some agents may try and tie you down for 6 months on an exclusive listing agreement, but we recommend to do 90 days, because if they're not selling that property in 90 days, something's going wrong, right? Like there's something wrong with the property, there's something wrong with that agent, there's something wrong with the marketing. We have to figure out what that is and create that fix in case the property's not selling.
Yeah, like before the 2008 financial crash or the housing crash, 6 months was common because there was a lot of inventory, homes would sell slowly, so that made sense. But since 2008, there's been a low amount of inventory. That's why now is a great time to fix and flip, because the United States will need decades to fix their inventory crisis, right?
Yeah.
So an agent should not need more than 90 days. If you list the house at the right price, you have the right agent and markets it, you will not need more than 90 days. So that automatic 6 month is just a default from decades of agents working in normal markets. But now we're in a time where inventory is and will be low for the foreseeable future.
And whatever agent you use, immediately, as soon as you put that house on the market, you want them holding open houses. You want as much traffic as you can, foot traffic, neighborhood traffic, going to your property to get as many offers as you can, and for them to see this new product, this new design that you've just brought into the neighborhood. And one of the first houses I flipped, I also got this awesome feeling of, oh my gosh, I'm reducing crime rates in the area. I'm actually increasing values of property for all the other neighborhoods in the area. Absolutely. And it was this feeling that was unanticipated. And you've been able to do that at scale. I've been able to do that many times over again throughout the years. But there's this pride, the sense of pride that comes once you're at this stage. All this hard work, it's a lot of hard work. And you really get rewarded for the value you bring. And it's all these little things that end up being a great product, and neighbors come by and say, oh my gosh, this is beautiful, thank you so much for what you've been doing. And then also their prices are going up as well, so they're happy.
Yeah, when the first house that I bought that I lived in, I think the highest price point in that neighborhood was probably $200,000. All right, so there was just not a lot happening there. There's a lot of abandoned houses. By the time I finished, the houses were selling at $500,000, because I focused on one neighborhood, and I actually did a strategy called we're just trying to improve the whole street. So I put 6 houses under contract on the same street, because I knew I can increase my own values by buying the whole street, which I did. Right. So I pick my own neighbors by me buying the houses, me renovating them, improving the whole street. So there's a lot of cool strategies when you're getting into these neighborhoods to, like you said, improve the values of everyone. And the neighbors were happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I think that's the buy the block strategy.
Yep.
All right. So now that we're selling the property, we're getting offers in. I mean, there might be FHA loans. There may be conventional loans. There may be cash offers.
Yeah.
There may be VA loans. You mind just briefly talking about those?
Yeah, typically I've seen 5 types of financing come in on offers. And like you said, the most common is going to be conventional,
Yes.
which is anywhere from 5 to 20% down loan from a well-qualified buyer. Normally it's not their first home, right? Then if you're working in a first-time home buyer area, you'll get a lot of FHA loans, which are government-backed loans that are typically 5 to 0% down loans that will require you as a seller to pay for one of 2 mandated appraisals. And so sometimes those people are not as well qualified. They're buying their first home. They need help with seller closing costs. So if you're selling a home in a first-time home buyer area, you'll more than likely need to budget, $5,000 to $6,000 in closing costs help when you're buying the deal on the deal analyzer. Then after that, we do see a good amount of VA loans, which are loans that are also government-backed for veterans and their families if they've served. And those are also usually well-qualified buyers. The loans are great, normally always close. We've had a good experience. Then if you're working in more rural areas, we get a lot of USDA loans, which is the United States Department of Agriculture, meant for more rural areas to become developed. So they're giving out these 100% finance loans that are almost always closing. They are a little slow, 45, 60 days sometimes, but they almost always get to the finish line. And finally, we do get a lot of cash offers. We wish all offers were cash offers, but normally these folks still want you to inspect, so still go through the inspection process. They normally won't do an appraisal. They normally just want the house. They don't care. It's the easiest closing timeline, and this is normally a closing that can happen as fast as 14 days. So those are the 5 types of financing you should expect.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's not going to be much more than that. That you're going to see those types of offers. You're going to see those types of loans. And then you pick one, and then you move on to the closing of a deal. Now the buyer's going to they're going to do their inspections, of course, to make sure everything's good. Lots of times what comes up is a request for repairs, which is when the buyer requests for repairs, and they have an inspector come, and sometimes you get an inspector that's very nitpicky, and you have to maybe give the seller some credits, maybe fix some things. Sometimes you get inspectors that aren't too picky.
Yeah. And typically we like to offer a couple different steps to get through that process. First and foremost is always just offering a credit. Just they take a little bit of money. If they want to spend it to fix those things or go on a family vacation, cool, but that's less work and headache for you. All right. Then if they have a contractor, maybe the buyer's agents often have maintenance contractors. They might give you a pretty decent quote. If you think that's a good price and your own contractors are not going to be much more, maybe still give them the credit, let their guys do it after closing, and then be done with it. And finally, you can do the work yourself, hire someone, fix it up, hopefully they're happy, and then get the deal closed. So those are really the 3 steps in that order that I would recommend that a potential seller selling a fix and flip home would go.
Perfect. And now just to wrap up selling it, we pass the inspections, we fix what we need to fix. It's closing day, depending on the state. You're using escrow, title, or attorney. It's our favorite day.
Absolutely.
It's when the check comes or the wire comes. Anything you want to add about closing day?
Like, a lot of times we recommend when you buy a house to fix and flip, you put it in an LLC for your protection. Make sure you have a bank account for that LLC so you can actually deposit the money. Because even though you might be the only owner of that LLC, the check or the wire has to be made out to that name. And a bank will require you to have an account to cash that check. You normally won't be able to take it anywhere and cash it. You'll have to have some sort of account, right? So you need to make sure you have a bank account to put that money somewhere, and also make sure your bills stop by canceling insurance and utilities the day of closing.
Perfect. Yeah, you don't want to be stuck without a bank account and not be able to get your money. So that's a great point.
I've definitely made the mistake of thinking a buyer is going to automatically transfer utilities to their name to get a water bill a month later and be like, how come you didn't do it? Well, it's really on you as the seller to make sure you cancel your services the day after closing, which is a kind of ethical thing to do. Now, in case it's a weekend, they have kids or moving in, it's a lot for someone.
Yeah.
So if you're closing on a Friday, schedule the services to be disconnected on the Monday, because the utility companies are typically closed on the weekend, so there's nothing these buyers can do. But you do want to make sure you do cancel them or set them to be canceled. I've definitely had multiple times where the buyers did not do their job, no one told them to, and I ended up paying an extra month to utilities.
So obviously you can see Stan has a lot of experience. You want to remember all these little things so you're not stuck paying extra fees. Because once you close the deal and you get your check, whether it's $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, you want to move on to the next one.
Yep.
You know, you want to move on. You want to keep multiplying your money as much as possible. And as you can see, there's a lot of little things here when it comes to flipping a house. And we want to be as thorough as possible on this. We want to make one of the best YouTube videos possible on this topic of flipping a house. And so we did cover those steps. Let's run through them again. Fund it, right? Fund it. We want that financing. It's what we, it's how we're going to be able to buy the deal. We want to do it first. You know, we always here at Real Estate Skills, we always want to begin with the end in mind, right? We don't ever want to be caught blindsided on anything that's to come. And I've just seen so many people get excited about finding the deal, right? They've watched the TV show, Flip This House. I've got the deal. And then they can't buy it because they can't bring the money. So we got fund it. We got 2, find it. We talked about the MLS offer system. We talked about wholesalers. We got 3, analyze it. We talked about the big 3, the ARV, the purchase price, the repairs. What else we got? We got buy it. Buy it's easy now at this point, right? Because we have the financing lined up because we work smarter, not harder.
That's right.
And then you did a phenomenal job covering the fix it section. You know, the most important thing after you bought the property, the actual renovation, keeping it on time, making sure everything's done in the right order.
And like you said, when you buy the house is when you make money. When you project manage it, that's when you keep or lose money. And then when you sell it, that's when you collect the money.
And so the great thing about this, what we're sharing with you, is that this is material that has changed our lives. I've seen you grow throughout the years. You've seen me grow throughout the years. A lot of us have followed the steps of wholesaling, then wholesaling, fixing and flipping, and then rolling our profits and buying and holding real estate. And that's what we'd love to teach others to do. It's a proven path. You know, one thing we always talked about is like this compounding learning and tilting the scales and stacking rocks in our favor. And for me, I know being active in real estate, making active income, and then rolling that money back into real estate, getting a passive income, has just provided so many benefits because I'm not working like a software job and then trying to learn real estate and like I'm all discombobulated. It just allows me to really stack these rocks. And I've seen your evolution of that to where not only are you wholesaling, fixing, and flipping, but you're also buying multifamily projects. We're partnering on multifamily projects. And we're not just talking about 10-unit apartments, we're talking about 100, 200-unit apartment buildings. Awesome. Well, that was a ton of value, Mr. Gendlin. I appreciate you coming here and sharing that with the whole entire audience. I know everyone's gonna get a ton of value from it. Please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Please leave a comment if you have any questions. We'll be sure to respond. And Stan, anything else?
Look, I mean, that was a lot of content for the fix and flip process. There's obviously a lot more. Those were the general ideas and some of the best golden nuggets that I have when it comes to fix and flipping. So hopefully people learned a lot.
Awesome, man. I know they will. Thank you, Stan.
If you want to build a hyper-profitable wholesaling and flipping business, then check out my full in-depth training at realstateskills.com/watch, and I'll put the link in the description. I'll see you there, and happy flipping.